So then the question becomes again, why should I? What's so important about the pre-deciding process? What's so important about it? It says this in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. It says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. So when you pre-decide, that's what you're deciding to do. I'm deciding to protect my heart. I'm deciding to protect my mind. I'm deciding to protect my choices. And here's what will happen, is one of the best ways for you to guard your heart is to discover your values. And then begin to make your pre-deciding process based upon your values. So now the question that you may have is, well, Ken, how do I find my values? How do I figure out what's really important to me? I want to encourage you to do this. Imagine, everybody go ahead and close your eyes. And just imagine, you're sitting at the head of a table. You're 85 years old. But you're 85 years old. And it's a party for you. And at this party, people begin to stand up and talk about the impact you've made in your life. Maybe your husband, your wife, maybe your children, your friends, maybe some co-workers. You can go ahead and open up your eyes. Just imagine. And so here's my question. What would you want to hear them say about you? What would you want to hear them say? Ken was generous. Ken was kind. Ken overcame some of his problems and setbacks. Ken was forgiving. Or Ken is forgiving because I guess I'm still alive. But Ken is forgiving. Like, what do I want them to say about me? What do you want them to say about you? Maybe imagine that and sit down and begin to write those things down. And what you'll find is those are your values. Those are your values. That's what you want to be known for. And so now, once you know your values, what you can begin to do is you can begin to say, okay, now that I know my values, I'm going to make my pre-decision choices based upon my values and where I want to be, based upon my vision and where I want to be. I'm going to make those. And then the other thing I want to encourage you to look at is what are the areas of your struggle? To begin to figure those out. Because I think one of the challenges that we face is sometimes one of the first things that we want to do is move on from our struggles, our trials. Jesus, thank you, I am out. Jesus took the wheel, and I'm out. But sometimes what we do is we waste what we could have learned from that trial, that struggle, that hardship. So maybe it might be a good idea to go back and look at it and see, okay, if I were to go through that situation differently, if I were to make different choices, how would I respond differently? How would I react differently? What would I say differently? What would I do differently so that I don't make the same mistakes that I made when I was in trouble or that got me in trouble? And then, how do I match that with the values that I want to have? So what we're doing is, again, we're pre-deciding who we're going to be and what we're going to be when it comes to the battles that we face. Because here's the important thing to understand, and that is simply this. And you might even want to write this down, and it's not going to be on the screen, this is just me saying it, is that decisions determine direction. And direction determines destiny. Change your destiny, change your decisions. But decisions determine direction. And directions determines destiny. And just kind of remind yourself of that. That these are the decisions that I'm making right now because I want to change, even if it's just, let me change my destiny for 2023 to where I can get to 2024 and say, man, I did do something differently this year. And I have seen how I've grown. I have seen where I've changed. I have seen where I've been able to make improvements and growth in my life. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you exactly why I wanted to do this series. I'll tell you why. I needed it for me. I'm just inviting you guys along for the ride. But I needed this series for me. I remember when I discovered it and I was listening to it and I was like, oh, that's so true. Oh, ouch. Oh, that's uncomfortable. But it was so true, the things that were talked about. And I thought, well, maybe what I could do is do this series and continue to encourage myself to continue to work on these things that I want to implement into my life. But then I thought, well, if it can help me, maybe it can help someone else. But I'll tell you, I have my wrestles. I've been working on eating better, and I have been doing well. I'd lost weight, and then the holidays came along. And when you're walking in the kitchen and you have Aunt Frida's famous chocolate cake or an apple, I'm sorry, the apple's gonna lose. Unless it's strawberries and I could put Aunt Frida's famous chocolate cake on strawberries, and then it's kind of a win-win situation there. But no, so my eating kind of went off the rails. I'm trying to get that back. One of the things that I decided to do as well is with my wife. My wife is now teaching, and so her schedule just became more complicated. So I decided I'm going to help out. I'm going to help out. One of the ways that I decided to help out was I was cooking dinner twice a week. But then what happened is the Christmas break happened. And when Christmas break happened for my wife, it happened for me. And I realized later, man, I really dropped the ball. I should have continued cooking and helping out in those ways. But when she went on break, I went on break. But I'm looking at, and I also look at, just some of the things, sometimes the way that I respond and handle life. And so I'm looking at some of these things, and I'm thinking, man, if I can implement some of these aspects of pre-deciding in my own life, then there's a possibility that I could see growth and development and change happen. And here's the thing. I really want you guys to walk away with hope. And so I asked myself, well, what is one way that I can give everyone hope? What is one way I can give myself hope? And then I thought about Hebrews chapter 10, verse 14, which I love. It says, for by that one offering, he forever made perfect those who are being made holy. By that one offering, he forever made perfect those who are being made holy. So you know what that means? No, there's a passage where this guy named Paul also is addressing the people that he's writing to. And he addresses it and he calls them saints. And the reality is, in God's eyes, we're also saints. You're gonna be like, whoa, wait, kid. Me? You didn't see me on a 405 yesterday. I wasn't acting very saintly. I did point a few people's way to heaven with a different finger. But we can look at ourselves and think, we can look at the reasons in our lives and disqualify ourselves from being very saintly. But in God's eyes, why? Because if you've made a decision to follow Jesus, then what happens is God looks at you through the sacrifice and lens of his son. And when he looks at you through the sacrifice and lens of his son, he sees you as done, finished, that you've arrived, that he's made you perfect. And so that should give us hope. Man, God, if that's what you see, it's a possibility. If you look at me and see discipline, if you look at me and see committed, if you look at me and see encouraged, if you look at me and see overcome, if you look at me and see free, if you look at me, then that's a reality. That God with you is possible. That it can really happen. That it can really happen. And I don't have to finish 2023 being the same. I'm hoping that you will walk away today living and knowing that you were encouraged because God already sees the work that you're doing is being done because of his son. You just got to continue to live it out until it becomes reality in your life.